Have you ever wondered what it would truly feel like to wake up in the middle of humanity's worst nightmare? Not the dramatized chaos of Hollywood, not zombies or exaggerated catastrophes, but the silent, creeping horror of a plague-stricken town, where life has been systematically erased and death lingers like a shadow over every street. The truth is far more unsettling than fiction. The moment you awaken, your mind will begin to grasp, in fragments and flashes, the sheer weight of what surrounds you. This isn't a story of fiction, it's grounded in history, medical studies, and the psychological realities of epidemic survival. And from the moment your eyes open, every sense will betray you. You rise in what seems to be a normal room. Dust motes drift lazily in beams of sunlight filtering through cracked windows. A few birds chirp outside, and the world feels ordinary. Until you notice the silence. Not the quiet of early morning, but a void so oppressive it presses against your consciousness like a living thing. The streets outside are empty. No merchants, no children playing, no distant conversations, just emptiness. At first, your mind searches for explanation. Perhaps it's too early. Maybe people are inside. But as you step closer to the window, the truth hits. The town isn't empty because of sleep or routine, it's empty because the people who once filled it are gone. Plague doesn't make spectacle, it leaves subtle clues that gradually overwhelm your senses, doors left closed, windows staring back like vacant eyes, streets eerily pristine yet steeped in death. You step outside. The first assault is olfactory. The smell of mass death, an odor so primal it bypasses rational thought, hits your senses before your eyes can fully comprehend it. Bodies hidden within houses, decaying in silence. The stench lingers, an invisible warning that life as you knew it has vanished. Your rational mind scrambles for alternative explanations, industrial accident, famine, war, but slowly, horrifyingly, the evidence accumulates, leaving no escape from the truth. Sound, or rather its absence, compounds your terror. No footsteps, no conversation, no animal calls, no daily hum of life. Human existence, normally a constant symphony of sound, is replaced by silence so complete it triggers a disorienting panic. Your mind races. How could a place so alive yesterday fall into such deathly stillness overnight? As you move through the town, the patterns of destruction reveal themselves. You don't see cinematic chaos at first, no bodies littering streets. Instead, the plague's fingerprint appears in homes and family dwellings, bodies lying where they fell, entire households wiped out within days. Some tried to care for their loved ones, stockpiling food and water, barricading doors, performing makeshift quarantines. Others succumbed alone, leaving behind intimate traces of their final moments, letters, journals, or the arrangement of personal belongings meant to preserve dignity against the inevitability of death. Every discovery etches a deeper psychological wound. These were people like you, living lives that mirrored your own, confronted with impossible decisions about survival, compassion, and hope. Their stories, frozen in time, force you to face choices you never imagined, shelter or flee, self-preservation or aid to others, clinging to hope or surrendering to despair. Signs of social collapse become impossible to ignore. Barricades cobbled together from furniture, homes stripped bare of goods, buildings burned in desperation. Religious sites, once centers of comfort, transformed into hospitals or refuges, or left as desperate altars for divine intervention. Civilization, you realize, is fragile. Institutions crumble when their caretakers fall, and the systems you once relied upon, economy, law, community, cease to exist. You are alone. Truly alone, in a world where every familiar structure has failed. Basic survival becomes a calculus of terror. Water, normally a source of life, is now a potential vector of death, contaminated wells, rivers tainted with decay, municipal systems abandoned. Every sip could bring infection, every choice carries risk. Food is no refuge either. Stockpiles of preserved goods lie in homes where the infected once lived, objects touched by the dying, spaces thick with invisible pathogens. Even clothing is fraught with danger, carrying traces of disease from those who perished before you. Each decision, what to eat, what to wear, where to shelter, requires balancing immediate survival against invisible threats that could kill you hours or days later. Your nights are a different horror. Exhaustion eventually overtakes you, but sleep offers no respite. Buildings creak, shadows loom, and every noise might be the approach of another desperate survivor, or the subtle groan of decay settling in silence. Hypervigilance becomes instinct. Restorative sleep is impossible. Nightmares are no longer imagined, they are the world around you, alive in every smell, sound, and sight. Weather becomes yet another adversary. Rain brings potential clean water, yes, but also risk of contamination, flooding of supplies, and exposure to cold. The environment itself, once predictable, is now a partner in a struggle where every choice might be fatal. This is the reality of waking up in a plague-stricken town, the collapse of society, the omnipresence of death, the harrowing decisions for survival, and the suffocating loneliness that gnaws at your mind. It is a place where humanity's darkest instincts emerge, where courage and morality are tested beyond endurance, and where even the strongest are broken by circumstances they cannot comprehend. You move cautiously through the streets, each step echoing unnaturally on cobblestones once alive with daily life. Windows gape open, silent witnesses to despair. Occasionally, you glimpse the remnants of someone's hurried flight, discarded shoes, overturned carts, a child's toy left abandoned as though the owners vanished mid-motion. Each object is a ghost of the past, whispering stories of people who had no chance to survive. The further you explore, the more the patterns of the plague reveal themselves. In some homes, you find the faint traces of resilience, cupboards stacked with bread and preserved foods, water barrels carefully stored, blankets arranged for warmth. These were measures born of hope, people who believed they could outlast the sickness. But hope was fragile. In other houses, the opposite prevails, evidence of panic and despair. Furniture barricaded doors, cupboards emptied frantically, walls scorched from fires set to cleanse the infected. Even in death, human behavior oscillates between calculated survival and uncontrollable fear. As the sun climbs higher, the heat of the day magnifies the stench. Decomposition becomes a tangible presence. You are forced to wear layers of fabric scavenged from abandoned homes, knowing each piece carries traces of the dead. Every garment is a reminder that infection is invisible, unpredictable, and ever-present. Even the simplest decisions, what to eat, where to rest, which path to follow, carry consequences that can kill within hours. You approach the town square. The central fountain, once a hub of community life, is now a grotesque monument to absence. Rats scurry among debris, drawn to the remnants of human existence. A broken cart lies overturned, its contents spoiled, attracting swarms of insects. Every sensory detail, the smell, the sight, the sound of distant buzzing, forces your mind to process threats you never imagined. Your heartbeat quickens, but you cannot flee. The plague is everywhere. Shelter becomes your next urgent concern. Every building offers potential safety but also potential death. You enter a house that seems intact, walls unbroken, doors locked. Inside, the silence is deafening. A layer of dust covers everything, but subtle signs tell the truth: a chair knocked over, a table set for a meal that was never eaten, a window slightly ajar as though someone had tried to escape. The air is heavy, almost viscous, thick with spores and decay. Every breath is a gamble, yet exhaustion leaves you no choice. You collapse onto a bed, praying it will provide rest. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, haunted by shadows and imagined footsteps. Days, or is it hours, pass. Time loses meaning in this void. You begin mapping the town in your mind, noting which street seems safest, which buildings are too contaminated to enter, and where food and water might still be viable. The psychological strain intensifies. Solitude twists perception. Shadows move where there are none. Whispers echo in empty halls. Even rational thoughts are invaded by paranoia. Is that a survivor watching from above? Or is it a hallucination brought on by sensory deprivation? Eventually, you confront another reality. The plague does not just kill bodies, it destroys communities. Systems collapse instantly when the human element disappears. The marketplace is a tomb. The town hall, once a center of governance, is now an empty shell. Religious institutions, though once pillars of hope, now serve as monuments to desperation. Symbols scrawled in chalk or painted in haste mark quarantined homes. Some are warnings, others are prayers left by the dying. Every mark tells a story of fear, devotion, and futility. You find yourself making decisions no human should ever face. Water from the well is available, but contaminated. A nearby stream might be safer, but downstream lies a cluster of corpses. Food is nearby, but the risk of infection is high. Each decision is a form of mental chess, calculated under extreme stress, where every wrong move could mean death. Your body aches constantly. Hunger gnaws. Thirst burns. Yet the mind cannot relax, vigilance is survival. Nightfall is the worst. Darkness amplifies every fear. The wind whistles through broken shutters like the cries of the dead. The town feels alive in its absence, as if the echoes of humanity that once thrived here are watching, judging, waiting. You hear the creak of floorboards above, a soft scuffing in the hall, your imagination or another survivor. You cannot know, and that uncertainty is almost unbearable. With each passing day, you become aware of the subtle rhythms of decay. Rodents multiply. Insects infest every crevice. Buildings begin to collapse from neglect. Nature creeps into the town, reclaiming spaces abandoned by humans. And yet, amidst this overwhelming despair, instinct compels you to survive. You learn patterns, which streets are safest, which sources of food are least contaminated, how to move without leaving traces that might draw attention. Survival becomes a combination of cunning, patience, and brutal honesty with yourself about your limitations. You begin to record your observations, leaving marks on walls, notes in abandoned journals, anything to preserve knowledge that might someday save someone else. Even in the most hopeless circumstances, humanity's drive to leave a legacy, however small, remains. These records are acts of defiance, tiny beacons of rational thought amid chaos. The plague town teaches a terrifying truth: civilization is fragile. Human society, for all its structures and systems, exists only so long as enough people maintain it. Once the chain breaks, everything collapses, leaving individuals alone against forces they can neither see nor fully understand. Your mind is tested relentlessly, balancing hope and despair, life and death, morality and instinct. And yet, in this desolation, survival is possible, but only for those who can navigate fear, adapt to overwhelming stress, and accept the cold reality of existence without others. Every choice matters. Every step is weighted with consequence. Every breath could be your last. Days blur together in the plague-ridden town, each moment stretching endlessly. You begin to notice the patterns of life that once existed here, now ghostly echoes. A wheelbarrow sits tipped over in the corner of a square, its contents rotted away, yet it hints at frantic labor before abandonment. A child's doll lies in the gutter, its porcelain face cracked, staring blindly at the sky. Every object tells a story of sudden departure, of lives interrupted by a disease both invisible and unstoppable. Hunger gnaws at you constantly. Food scavenging becomes a tense game of risk assessment. You open cupboards and pantries once stocked with bread, grains, salted meat, and preserved vegetables, but every item carries potential death. You must weigh the risk of contamination against the urgent demands of a starving body. Spores, bacteria, and decay lurk on every surface. Your mind calculates the invisible threats that your eyes cannot see. Each meal becomes a calculated gamble, a test of courage and survival instincts sharpened by desperation. Water is even more perilous. Wells may hold life-sustaining liquid, but also conceal corpses, disease, and decay. Streams wind through the town, sometimes inviting, sometimes tainted with runoff from plague victims. You weigh each source, your rational mind battling the screaming instincts of survival. Every sip, every decision, carries the potential for death. And yet, you drink. You must. The plague does not merely take bodies, it consumes society. Institutions crumble. The marketplace is a tomb. The town hall, once bustling with administration, now sits empty, walls silent but for the whispers of history. Religious buildings, temples, churches, and mosques, bear signs of human desperation, makeshift hospitals, hastily conducted last rites, prayers scratched into walls, and items arranged in ritualistic hope. Here, you witness humanity clinging to meaning even as it is erased. Your nights are the most harrowing. Darkness magnifies every fear. Shadows cast by moonlight through broken windows stretch like the hands of the dead, reaching for you. The wind carries whispers, or is it your imagination? Every creak, every rustle, is a potential threat. Sleep is fitful, haunted by imagined footsteps and the omnipresent stench of decay. Night becomes a trial of endurance, sharpening hypervigilance and fraying the edges of your sanity. You begin mapping the town mentally, noting which streets are relatively safe, which houses hold supplies, and which are too contaminated to enter. Over time, you notice the silent movement of nature reclaiming the town, vines crawling up walls, birds nesting in abandoned homes, rats multiplying in shadows. Civilization is gone, the natural world encroaches. Survival now demands cunning and adaptation, the ability to read subtle signs of danger and opportunity alike. Every encounter with the remnants of human life leaves psychological scars. You find journals, letters, and hastily written notes, messages to the unknown, instructions, or desperate pleas. You witness the final moments of families preserved in death, a mother cradling a child, a husband sitting beside a wife's lifeless body, an elderly man clutching a journal as if it were a talisman. The intimacy of these scenes is horrifying, forcing you to confront what humanity looks like when stripped bare, vulnerable, desperate, and alone. The plague's reach is relentless. You begin to recognize patterns in the decay and destruction, barricaded streets, burned buildings, looted homes, and areas left untouched only because no living person remained to disturb them. Civilization's thin veneer has shattered, leaving nothing but raw survival instincts in its wake. You learn quickly that morality, social norms, even hope are luxuries here. Your only currency is knowledge, vigilance, and careful decision-making. As weeks pass, the town becomes both adversary and teacher. You develop strategies, storing uncontaminated water, rationing food, using clothing and shelter judiciously, avoiding areas that reek of death. Every choice carries weight. Every mistake can end your life. Sleep, hunger, and psychological stress test your endurance, reshaping your perception of fear and mortality. Yet amidst this overwhelming horror, glimpses of human resilience persist. A house with carefully stacked supplies shows evidence of planning, rationing, and the desperate hope of its occupants. Messages left behind reveal attempts to communicate, to leave lessons or warnings, a testament to human ingenuity even when civilization collapses. These artifacts of hope, small as they may be, remind you that survival is possible, even when surrounded by death. By the time you begin to navigate the town with purpose, the plague has taught you a fundamental truth: life is fragile, society is ephemeral, and survival is dictated not just by strength or skill, but by adaptability, observation, and the willingness to confront horrors that ordinary minds are never meant to face. Every street, every building, every shadow is a lesson in resilience. Every moment of fear, every calculated risk, and every choice you make becomes a meditation on what it means to be human in the absence of civilization. You are alone, yes, but alone in a world that forces you to see humanity at its most raw, its most desperate, and, paradoxically, its most enduring. And in that stark, plague-ridden town, amidst stench, silence, and the constant threat of death, you survive. Not because life is fair, or hope is abundant, but because instinct, intelligence, and sheer determination allow you to navigate the impossible. And through this experience, you gain a profound understanding of life's fragility, the delicate threads that hold communities together, and the unimaginable strength required to endure when all else has fallen away. Weeks have passed since you first awoke in the plague-ravaged town, and the monotony of survival has transformed into a relentless rhythm of fear, calculation, and endurance. Each day blends into the next, marked not by hours but by the small victories of sustenance, safety, and knowledge. You have learned the streets, the buildings, the safest paths, and the areas to avoid. The town has become a labyrinth of danger and possibility, a place where every corner, every shadow, hides either sustenance or death. One morning, as the first weak sunlight struggles through a gray sky, you hear something, a faint sound that makes your blood run cold. Footsteps. Not your own. Deliberate, slow, and cautious, echoing through the empty streets. Your heart hammers in your chest. You freeze, calculating the distance, the direction. Are these the steps of another survivor, or something far more sinister? The rational part of your mind races. Other humans could mean help, companionship, a shared struggle, but they could also mean competition, violence, or theft. You remember how quickly social order collapses when survival is threatened, how morality erodes under the weight of desperation. You grip a sturdy branch from a nearby tree, preparing for defense while silently watching from the shadows. The figure emerges, a man, ragged, gaunt, his clothing stained with mud and unwashed for weeks, eyes hollow with exhaustion and fear. He pauses, scanning the streets, just as cautious and terrified as you are. The moment stretches, tense and fragile, until you finally step forward into a sliver of sunlight. He flinches. You both hold your ground, silent, trying to read intentions. In this plague-ridden world, trust is a rare and dangerous commodity. Every decision could tip the scales between life and death. You assess, is he desperate enough to cooperate, or ruthless enough to take what you've scavenged? Slowly, cautiously, you make the choice to speak. Words are exchanged, tentative and measured. He shares what little he knows. The plague came fast, the town fell quicker than anyone could prepare, and survivors are scattered, hiding, or dead. His story mirrors yours, loss, fear, isolation, and yet there is a spark of recognition, a shared humanity, fragile but present. Together, you explore the town, pooling knowledge and resources. You find abandoned food, clean water sources, makeshift weapons, and safer shelters. The psychological load eases slightly because survival is now shared, yet new dangers emerge. Humans, even in desperation, are unpredictable. Every interaction is a negotiation between trust and fear. You learn quickly how fragile alliances can be. A shared meal might be stolen, a shelter might be taken by force, a misstep could provoke violence. Over time, you begin to notice the subtle changes in your companion, and in yourself. Prolonged isolation and exposure to death have changed both body and mind. Sleep is fitful, anxiety constant, paranoia lurking at the edges of thought. Every shadow triggers a startle, every distant sound a surge of adrenaline. Yet there are moments of normalcy, shared strategies for scavenging, quiet conversations about life before the plague, whispered reflections on what it means to survive in a world stripped bare. As days stretch into weeks, the town itself becomes almost a character in your struggle. Buildings crumble, nature creeps in, and the air carries the ever-present memory of death. You begin to map escape routes, imagining a life beyond the town, but each plan is tempered by the reality that survival is no longer about hope, it is about adaptability. Your exploration brings new discoveries. You stumble upon a small garden, neglected but still producing hardy vegetables. An abandoned livestock pen houses a few surviving chickens and goats. A cellar contains a surprising cache of preserved grains, carefully sealed, a testament to someone's foresight and determination before they too succumbed. Every find brings relief but also guilt, the knowledge that survival depends on claiming what once belonged to others who could not endure. The psychological weight of witnessing death, navigating moral dilemmas, and confronting the fragility of human society intensifies. You keep journals, marking paths, supplies, and observations. You note patterns of plague progression, building evidence for future survivors. These journals are acts of defiance, tiny attempts to impose order and meaning upon chaos. And still, the threat is omnipresent. Bodies in the streets, smells that never fade, the constant threat of infection, and the subtle tension between you and your companion keep every moment taut. Survival is a delicate balance of risk assessment, instinct, and sheer willpower. Nightfall brings its own horrors. Darkness stretches across the empty town like a living thing. Wind whistles through broken windows, trees groan as if bearing witness to the dead, and every creaking floorboard or shifting shadow is interpreted as potential threat. Sleep is a luxury few can afford, every rest is punctuated by nightmares that mirror the reality around you. Yet in this crucible of fear, a truth becomes evident: human resilience endures even in the most hopeless circumstances. Adaptation, observation, and cautious trust allow life to persist. Each day survived is a victory. Each meal secured, each shelter maintained, each interaction navigated becomes a testament to the enduring instinct to live. The plague-ridden town is no longer merely a place of death, it is a teacher, showing the boundaries of fear, the depths of desperation, and the remarkable strength of the human will. You learn, painfully and deliberately, that survival is not about heroism or luck, it is about making impossible choices, embracing discomfort, and confronting horrors that ordinary minds cannot comprehend. Weeks stretch into months. The town, once a place of ordinary life, now exists as a silent, decaying monument to death. Every street, every building, every shadow carries the memory of lives abruptly extinguished. You and your companion have survived this long through constant vigilance, careful scavenging, and calculated risk, but survival has taken its toll. Sleep deprivation, hunger, and the relentless stench of decay gnaw at your mind and body. Every decision carries a life or death weight. You wake one morning to a chilling new reality: the plague, though relentless, has not been static. You notice the signs immediately: the subtle shifts in the air, the quiet rustle of movement that isn't yours, the faint but unmistakable odor of decay carried on the wind from a previously undisturbed section of town. Something has changed. Exploring further, you come across the remnants of a larger household. Once a wealthy family, perhaps, their estate now lies abandoned, its windows shattered, furniture overturned, and walls streaked with soot. But it is the upstairs rooms that tell the most harrowing story, bodies lying where they fell, small personal belongings scattered around, and a child's toy clutched in a tiny hand. The intimacy of these deaths is overwhelming, forcing you to confront the human scale of the epidemic. These were not anonymous statistics. These were real people, just like you, their lives snatched away in days. Your companion is tense, moving with heightened alertness. Both of you know that danger now comes from more than disease, it could come from other survivors driven to desperation. The town's collapse has not rendered it completely uninhabited. Shadows flicker in windows, faint footsteps echo at impossible hours, and you feel constantly observed. You learn to communicate silently, reading each other's body language, anticipating reactions, making decisions with a precision born of fear and necessity. The need for food and water forces you into perilous spaces. You navigate through a market, shelves stripped bare except for a few rotting vegetables and casks of questionable water. You debate risks silently, weighing the certainty of starvation against the probabilistic threat of infection. Each step, each touch of an object, feels like a negotiation with death itself. Night falls and brings its own horrors. The darkness transforms the town into a labyrinth of terror. Shadows stretch unnaturally under the dim moonlight. Every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the flutter of wings, the whisper of wind through broken windows, sets your nerves on edge. Sleep, when it comes, is shallow and haunted by vivid nightmares. You dream of faces you've seen in death, of voices calling to you from empty houses, of the relentless pressure of isolation pressing against your mind. Over time, your mind begins to adapt to this new reality. You develop routines, patrols through the streets at dawn, scavenging expeditions during the safer daylight hours, careful management of food and water stores. You establish a small, defensible shelter, barricading it with whatever materials remain. Yet even in these routines, there is no comfort. Every decision is a balance between survival and morality, between immediate needs and long-term consequences. One day, exploring the outskirts of the town, you encounter a small garden, miraculously still producing hardy vegetables. A few chickens and goats remain, scavenging what they can from abandoned yards. You realize that survival is no longer just about avoiding death, it is about rebuilding in microcosm, creating a fragile ecosystem in the shadow of a collapsed society. Even this small triumph is tempered by fear, the garden is exposed, and every trip to gather food carries risk from disease and other survivors. Letters and journals left behind by the dead become your guide, chronicling not just the epidemic but the human response to it, desperation, ingenuity, courage, and despair. You read stories of people who rationed food, attempted quarantine, and cared for loved ones even when they knew it might kill them. These fragments of human life provide both instruction and emotional torment, they remind you of what has been lost and what might yet be preserved. As the weeks turn into months, psychological pressure reaches its peak. The combination of isolation, sensory deprivation, and constant life-or-death decision-making begins to erode your sense of time, reality, and self. You question your own sanity. Hallucinations flicker at the edges of perception, faces in windows, whispered voices in empty halls, fleeting shadows that vanish when looked at directly. Your companion, too, shows signs of strain, sudden irritability, overreaction to minor stimuli, moments of despair that are nearly uncontainable. Yet amidst this overwhelming horror, there is survival. Adaptation, vigilance, and resilience allow you to endure. You begin to anticipate the rhythms of the town, the safest paths, the most reliable water sources, the locations of supplies left behind. You develop contingency plans, escape routes, and strategies for avoiding both the disease and hostile survivors. The plague town becomes a brutal teacher, instructing you in patience, calculation. Through it all, one truth becomes clear: survival is possible, but only for those who can embrace the terrifying reality of life in a world stripped of structure, trust, and safety. You are forced to confront the starkest aspects of human nature, the capacity for fear, desperation, and cruelty, alongside the instinct to persevere, adapt, and endure. The sun dips low, casting long, ghostly shadows across the empty streets. You stand at the edge of the town, looking back at the crumbling buildings, broken windows, and abandoned homes. The air is thick with the memory of lives lost, and the silence presses down like a living thing. Your companion stands beside you, both of you exhausted, haunted, and forever changed. For a moment, neither speaks, only the wind moves, carrying the faint cries of the past and the distant rustle of scavenging wildlife. You take a deep breath, letting the weight of the experience settle. The town is behind you, a silent testament to the fragility of civilization, the horrors of disease, and the strength it takes to survive when all else has fallen away. Slowly, you begin to walk forward, stepping onto the road that leads beyond the plague-ravaged town. Each step is heavy, but purposeful. You are no longer the person who woke up in a quiet bedroom days, or weeks, ago. You are a survivor. Hardened. Changed. A witness to humanity at its most vulnerable, yet also at its most enduring. In the plague-ridden town, you learn that humanity is not defined solely by civilization, but by resilience. Even in the shadow of death, in streets abandoned and filled with decay, life persists, not because it is easy, or fair, or kind, but because some spark of human determination refuses to be extinguished. You emerge changed, haunted, and hardened, but alive. And in that survival lies the most profound lesson: humanity's strength is measured not by what it builds, but by what it endures when all else is gone. And as the shadows lengthen and the silence stretches across the abandoned streets, one truth remains: survival is not just about escaping death, it's about carrying the memory of what it took to endure, the lessons learned in despair, and the resilience of the human spirit. If you woke up in a medieval plague-ridden town, would you survive? Or would the weight of history and humanity's darkest hours crush you? Remember, even in the darkest moments, there is a spark of resilience that refuses to be extinguished. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's shadows. Don't forget to subscribe to Lyfory for more immersive stories, explorations, and real-life lessons from the past and present. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and never forget what it means to endure.